Today, I'm going to be talking about the detached market in the Fraser Valley and where I think it's going, what's happening in it. And I'm going to be talking about specifically Abbotsford because I've been working this market a lot lately because I know the ins and outs of it. I know, most listings that are on the market, what's happening with them and everything in between. So I'm going to talk about Abbotsford, but you can pretty much apply this right across the Fraser Valley. And what I want to talk about is I'm not saying prices won't go down in the detached market for the Fraser Valley. But what I'm going to build the case for today is why I think you're going to be more insulated buying a detached home than anything else in the market, right? So I'm not saying you're going to make money next year or you're not going to lose money next year, but I'm going to say, I'm going to build the case for taking a calculated risk. And if you have to buy and you've already decided you're going to buy, why your potential risk is probably lowest in the detached market. So starting off, Abbotsford detached, there's 606 homes on the market. And if you look at this chart, you can see that inventory isn't that high. It looks to be normal, right? And actually, if you look at this number right here, it's up 0.2% year over year. So this year, there's 606 homes on the market. Last October, there's 605. The October before it, inventory is really low in 2023, there's 520. In 2022, there was 530. 2021, when prices were soaring through the moon, there was 243. 2020, 469. In October 2019, decently bad market, 593. October 2018, 561. October 2017, almost 500. 16, 545. 500. 586. 677. So you can make the case that inventory is high, but it's not that high. It might be 10, maybe 20% higher, maybe not even that, right? You take a look at apartments, look at this. In comparison to the last 10 years, it's very easy to say inventory is high. If you look at townhomes, it's very easy to say inventory is high. You look at detached, inventory seems to be normal. So if you look across the real estate market, condos, townhomes, detached, condos and townhomes have two problems: high inventory and low sales. From my perspective, detached only has one problem: low sales, okay? If we look at the amount of sales, down 25% year over year, 64 this year. And last year, this time, there was 86. And I've gone back through all of this, and it seems like a normal amount of sales is about roughly around 100. Like 90-ish, 90 to like 110 seems to be a normal amount of sales for the detached market. And currently it's sitting at 11% sales ratio, which is about 9 months of inventory. So the fact that inventory seems to be normal and the one problem is sales, I think gives you a safety net, because where is the new flood of inventory coming from in the detached market? And I'll tell you what people are going to say. They're going to say, unemployment. Okay, but that problem also exists in the condo and townhome market. And I'm sure I could actually argue that unemployment will be a worse problem for condos and townhomes than it'll be for detached, because a lot of people who own detached homes have been living in them for, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20 years. And they've got equity and assets and more stuff that they can use and liquidate to deal with a job loss. Whereas most of the people in the condo market haven't built really any equity, and they might just be living paycheck to paycheck or have a very small sum of cash set aside. Same thing with townhomes, where the people in the detached market on average are probably a lot more affluent and have a higher net worth, right? So the detached market, the unemployment thing exists across all areas of the real estate market. And I think if any segment of the market's probably going to be able to deal with that better than any other segment, it'd probably be detached. So that's the first thing people say. The next thing they'll say is, oh, well, the baby boomers, right? And when people talk about this issue, they make it seem like every single baby boomer owns a detached home and they're all going to die next year and it's going to crash the market, right? And I'm sorry for speaking bluntly if you're a baby boomer, right? I'm obviously wishing the best for you, but that's not the case. So like, first off, the baby boomers, they will pass away slowly over the next 10 to 20 years, most likely, maybe 30 if they're, really lucky and they've lived a very healthy and modest life, right? But that's going to happen slowly over the next 10 to 20 years. The next thing is that it's not like every baby boomer owns a detached house, right? There are 55 plus communities. There's full communities of baby boomers in condos and townhomes. There's 3 concrete towers in Abbotsford, 55 plus age restricted, filled with almost entirely baby boomers, right? It's not like every single baby boomer just owns a detached home. A lot of them will move out of the detached home before their final days because they don't want to walk up and down stairs. So they'll downsize to like an older townhome, or they'll downsize to a condo so they don't have to deal with the stairs, right? So of that percentage of baby boomers that will say pass away next year, there's only going to be, a percentage of that percentage that owns detached homes, right? And of the percentage that own detached homes, it's not like all of that detached inventory will just be additional inventory on the market. That capital will be passed down to their relatives. And who knows if their relatives aren't just going to take that money and also buy detached homes, right? Who knows? Maybe those baby boomers have 3 kids and that money gets passed down to the 3 kids. Let's say it's $1 million owned outright. Each kid now has 300 grand. What if each kid goes and buys a detached home with that money? Well, now it's, there's +1 detached home on the market, but then -3 ends up being the end result. So I don't know what the validity is of this narrative that baby boomers passing away is going to crash the detached market. I don't think it will. I don't think that's a concern. I just don't think it is. I think, it'll probably be more inventory on the market, but again, that's going to be spread out over a longer time frame than people think. That capital gets passed down to relatives, which we don't know what they're going to do with that capital. They may buy a detached home and then it ends up being a net negative. And a lot of these baby boomers already don't live in detached homes. They live in condos and townhomes. So those are the 2 things people say for where the inventory is coming from. We are not building any of these detached homes. And because we're not building them, that is pretty much where the inventory is going to have to come from. Unless things get extremely bad and like a whole bunch of people lose their jobs, or things just get like horrendously terrible. Yes, there could be more inventory, but there's no guaranteed wave of inventory coming like you have in condos and townhomes, where we are building a lot of condos and we are building maybe not a lot of townhomes, but we're building enough of them that we know there's going to be net more of them next year. Detached, we're speculating that there'll be more inventory, but there's no confirmation that there actually will be more inventory. So the inventory is normal right now, and there's no guarantee that there's going to be any more of it. And in fact, we're also knocking them down every single year as well. So of the existing inventory that we have, we're actually getting rid of them and we're replacing them with condos and townhomes, or we're replacing them with $2.3 million mansions that first-time home buyers can't afford or move-up buyers can't afford. So in my opinion, the problem with the detached market is sales. But sales, as the prices go down, because of induced demand, when you increase the supply of something, the cost of it goes down. And then because of the cost of it, more people can afford to purchase that thing. And then the demand for it increases. If the prices continue to go down from here, I think you're going to see more demand come back into the market. And we don't need a whole lot more demand to start chipping away at the already normal levels of inventory that we have. And, you run the numbers on this currently, okay? If you have a $690,000 townhome, because you can get a decent townhome in Abbotsford now for $690,000, 20% down, it's basically $2,700 plus $300 strata fee. It's about $3,000 a month. Well, you can get a decent detached home with a suite now where the downstairs probably rents for $1,300 for $900,000, and your monthly payment's going to be $3,500 minus $1,300, which is $2,200. So it's about $800 a month cheaper than a townhome before property taxes, right? Let's say you buy a $500,000 2-bedroom condo, okay? That's $1,900 plus $400 strata fee. That's about $2,300. Before property taxes, the detached home is $100 a month cheaper than the 2-bedroom condo, than the newer 2-bedroom condo. So imagine now if that $900,000 detached home is $800,000. Well, now you're talking about a monthly payment, assuming rent stays the same, which it may not, but you're talking about a monthly payment that's $1,800 a month. How much more demand would come back into the detached market if prices were to drop another $100,000? So the point that I'm making here is not that prices aren't going to go down. I'm not telling you to go out and buy a detached home. The point that I'm making is that I believe you're insulated from a lot of downward action in the detached market when we compare to condos or townhomes, because inventory isn't very high as it is. There isn't any more of it coming, if I'm right about the baby boomer thing and the unemployment thing, right? Which I could be totally wrong. But again, you're taking a calculated risk, calculated bet. And the only problem that I see here currently is actually sales. But as the prices go down and the interest rates are lower, you should see more sales come back into this market. And because inventory is somewhat normal, you should be able to chop away at the existing inventory relatively quick. Whereas like in the condo or townhome market, even if sales return to a normal level, we still have to chop through a whole bunch of inventory, a whole bunch of standing inventory, and we have to chop through the new inventory that's coming next year as well. So that's my thesis on that. And again, I could be wrong, so you do whatever you want to do. But if you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, and if you want to chat with me about buying or selling your detached home, there's a link down in the description. I'm that Agent Kelly. I'm making moves to move you. Peace.